A rainy love story. Saigon's rain poured heavily one Saturday afternoon, and Tram, after a long day working at a small cafe, stood under the shelter, watching streams of water fall on a soft, blurred curtain. Autumn rains in Saigon always arrived unexpectedly, like an unannounced friend who drops by uninvited. She shivered a bit, waiting for the downpour to ease so she could head home. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a young man standing nearby under the same awning, looking out at the rain. His name was Kian, a tall, easygoing guy with a warm smile and kind eyes. Tram hadn't realized he'd been there watching the rain with her. When she caught his gaze, a hint of shyness swept over her, but the friendly grin on his face set her at ease. "Rain like this can make you cold. How about I treat you to a warm cup of coffee?" he asked gently, his voice low and inviting. Surprised, Tram hesitated for a moment, but his offer felt genuine. She nodded, feeling a quiet comfort in his presence. Together, they stepped into a nearby cafe, where soft yellow lights and the rich scent of coffee created a cozy, welcoming atmosphere. Tram chose a seat by the window, where she could still watch the rhythm of raindrops trickling down the glass. For a moment, they simply sat, each occasionally glancing at the other. Then Kian broke the silence, asking about her work, her small joys, her quiet life at the cafe. Normally reserved, Tram found herself opening up, sharing stories about her love for drawing and her dream of leading a peaceful, simple life. She hadn't expected someone to care about these small details of her world. Kian listened intently, his warm gaze never wavering, and Tram felt seen in a way that went beyond words. He, too, shared parts of himself. A young architect recently moved to Saigon, he was still adjusting to the energy of the city. Kian spoke of his work, his passion for creating spaces that brought people a sense of comfort and belonging, a vision of beauty he hoped would brighten lives. As the rain outside softened to a light drizzle, they shared a comfortable silence, both feeling as though they'd waited for this unexpected connection all along. Finally, Kian offered, "Would you like me to walk you home? It's still a bit damp outside, and I'd like to be sure you get back safely." Touched by his thoughtfulness, Tram nodded, finding herself oddly reluctant to part from him. They walked through the quiet streets, still glistening from the rain, and spoke only sparingly. But in the silence, there was a closeness that felt surprisingly natural. For the first time, Tram felt her heart awaken to a joy she hadn't known was missing. When they reached her door, Kian turned to her with a gentle look. "Thank you for spending the evening with me," he said with a soft smile. "I hope this won't be the last time we meet." She smiled back, her heart warming. "I hope so, too, Pooh. Thank you for the coffee." Inside, Tram couldn't help but peek back through the window as his silhouette gradually disappeared into the night. A quiet happiness lingered in her heart, unexpected and sweet. In the days that followed, Kian began visiting the cafe regularly. He never made promises or spoke of anything grand, he simply showed up and filled her days with warm conversations and little stories. Tram soon found herself eagerly awaiting his visits, her heart lightening every time he walked in with that easy smile. They grew closer in these small, unhurried moments, a gentle connection that blossomed like flowers after rain. One day, another heavy rain fell over the city, and Kian came to the cafe with an umbrella in hand. As the place quieted down, he approached her, extending his hand with a soft grin. "May I walk you home properly this time?" Her heart skipped a beat as she met his gaze and took his hand. They walked side by side, sharing an umbrella under the gentle drizzle, and for once, the rain muted everything but their shared steps and quiet laughter. When they reached her door, Kian paused, looking at her with a smile that held a promise. "I'm not sure how long I'll be in Saigon," he began softly. "My work could take me away at any time. But if you don't mind, I'd like to be the one to keep you company, like this, as long as I can." Tram looked at him, her heart swelling with a mix of joy and quiet understanding. She nodded, her smile soft, before stepping inside. As she closed the door, she cast one last glance at him, her heart now filled with a newfound happiness. From that day forward, Kian and Tram became part of each other's lives. They shared rainy afternoons, warm cups of coffee, and tranquil moments that made their days fuller, even on the quietest evenings. It was a love unhurried, steady, and full of warmth, like a soft melody that lingered long after the rain had faded away. For Kian, it had been something more than just a passing encounter in the rain. He had noticed Tram long before that rainy day, as he often passed by the little cafe where she worked. Her delicate beauty and gentle nature caught his attention each time, and he'd seen her kindness in the way she treated the customers with patience and a sincere smile. There was a quiet strength about her that intrigued him, a resilience that hinted at a story beneath her calm demeanor. He admired her modesty, her grace, and even the way she seemed to light up a room simply by being in it. Kian had admired her from afar for a long time, uncertain if he should ever approach. But that day, with the rain pouring down and her standing under the awning looking as serene as ever, he finally found the courage to speak. It felt like fate, as if the rain had given him the perfect reason to reach out to her. Now, as they walked together and shared these simple, happy moments, he knew he had made the right choice. She had accepted his presence, trusted him enough to open up, and, more than anything, allowed him to be a part of her world. In her company, Kian found a quiet contentment that he hadn't known he needed. And so, under each drizzle or sunshine, they continued side by side, discovering in each other a companionship that was meant to be. In her, he'd found more than a passing connection, he had found a home.